So the Roman Abramovich philosophy at Chelsea lives on. Thomas Tuchel has indeed been sacked just 6 games into the Premier League season, and I think it's come as a surprise to a lot of football fans on social media. This early, 6 games into the season, I'll delve further into why I think it's a bit rushed and a bit panicked. But we'll first look at why it might be the right decision for Chelsea. Something was clearly brewing between whether it was Tuchel in his press conferences, not seeming too happy with the players. The players don't look to be particularly playing for him anymore. Something was clearly brewing there. So, mate, that's probably one side towards it. And there's also a side that it's not Todd Bowley's actual manager. Of course, Tuchel was appointed under the Abramovich scheme. Bowley has since taken over that towards the end of last season. And Bowley might want his own man that he's gone out and got his first managerial appointment to take them into the next step of their project with all the young players they're signing. And Tuchel hasn't particularly been known for managing a young side. He just hasn't. So I think that's definitely a side to look into it, where it could potentially be understandable slightly, but I still think it's bonkers, absolutely bonkers, to just even sack a manager 6 games into the season. And they're not. It's not like they're 6 games in and they're like down the bottom. I understand it then, because of course Scott Parker's been sacked at Bournemouth before. Like that was after 4 or 5 games. So this ain't the first sacking. And I'll touch on Scott Parker for a minute now. I don't think that was really performance based. I know a lot of people say, they lost 9-0 to Liverpool, they got battered by City, Arsenal. I don't think it was anything to do with performances to do with Scott Parker, because of course they beat Aston Villa opening day. It's not like they lost every game, got beaten convincingly and they needed to change. It was simply just because of his attitude towards in the media about the club. It stunk. He clearly showed no faith in what the board had done in the transfer window, which is understandable because they haven't done much business, and you're seeing Brendan Rodgers do that now. But it's kind of understandable, the things that he does say, that he would eventually get sacked, which he has done. So that's now Bournemouth and Chelsea both looking for managers. So we'll touch onto Chelsea in the league standings now. Of course, they've started the season. People can tell that they're not the finished article yet. Of course, Aubameyang only made his debut last night in the Champions League. We'll touch upon that in a minute, that game, and why I think this whole sacking is a bit panicked. But Aubameyang made his debut last night. Fofana's played 1 or 2 games now. They're not the finished article at all. And you've gone out and spent so much money in the summer, back in Tuchel, getting the players that he actually wants. And while you fouled with a lot of them, let's admit, you fouled with a lot of the signings you wanted, but you've still gone out there, backed the manager, spent so much money, to then sack him after 6 games. It's absolutely ludicrous to me. And it's not like they're near the bottom and ain't doing well this season. They played 6, won 3, drew once, and lost twice. The one draw against us, you could potentially argue for Chelsea fans, they got robbed, whatever, I don't care. They could have won the game, fair enough. And of course, one of their wins was controversial against West Ham, which should have probably been a draw. But they haven't started off the season poorly, at all. They've had a similar start to Liverpool. And you don't see, and I get Jurgen Klopp has more credit in the bank than Thomas Tuchel, even though Tuchel's won a Champions League. But you don't see people calling for Klopp to be sacked. You don't see the Liverpool owners panicking over Klopp. Because that's not what you do. It's just not what you do with managers. Even Villa down at the bottom in 17th. Questions were asked to Gerrard, and then he goes and gets a draw against Man City. Which, granted, doesn't save his job, but they're giving him time to turn it around. Leicester, bottom of the league, haven't won a game yet. Rodgers don't have much time left, but they're not sacking him after 6 games. I just think, obviously, different team standards, etc., in different clubs, but this is nuts. This is the worst. I say it's the most panicked decision of sacking a manager I think I can remember seeing. Because I'll go into like the Zagreb game a bit more and why I think it's rushed. Obviously, Todd Boehly will probably come out and say, and I think he might have done the statement or whatever, where they've been thinking about this decision for a while. You might have been thinking about it, but it's not planned. It's not at all planned. You're not going to tell me, say if Chelsea went to Zagreb yesterday, won comprehensively and comfortably against Dinamo Zagreb, didn't lose 1-0, say Aubameyang scored on his debut, you win 2 or 3-0, and it's all comfortable and it's all good, and then you move on to the weekend. You're not telling me Thomas Tuchel was being sacked the morning after. This is reactionary to that result. They won their Premier League game the last weekend against West Ham. And granted, they lost to Southampton a few days before. But you can't tell me that they've been planning this decision for like a few weeks. It's really reactionary to last night, I think. Because if you do win that game, it's fine. You haven't planned. There's no way you've planned this. There's no plan going towards it. There's no plan as to who you get next. Of course, there's 3 names in the list. I'll talk about what they should do next in a minute. There's 3 or 4 names on the list next. You don't fully know who you're going to get. You might know who you want to get. You don't know who you're going to get. There isn't a plan here. And that's what I think Chelsea fans should really be worried about with Todd Boehly. He's not... I think everyone can tell he's not a football man. And he's gone very hands-on with his approach in trying to do most of the things himself. I don't see it working. It can go very south very quickly. He tries to do a lot of things himself. He's not particularly a football man, like I said. I think this is so reactionary and so disrespectful to a manager who, a couple seasons ago, you had the turmoil of Frank Lampard sacking a club legend to bring him in. Within 6 months, he wins the Champions League. And do you really think that squad that he had then was good enough to win a Champions League? No, it wasn't. Surely that... And I get it was 2 years ago, and last season they weren't great, and of course you had the Lukaku issue. But then you had the takeover issue towards the end of last year, where he basically had to be a director of football for the club while managing. That's not anything any manager is used to. So I think this is so reactionary. It's too quick. It's too early. Give him more time. You've just spent so much money in trying to back him. Why are you sacking him now? Because you'll bring in another manager, and they might not like the players you've just spent so much money on, and not use them. Like, you've just bought Aubameyang from Barcelona. Aubameyang's given all the, I'm so excited to play for Thomas Tuchel again. He's played 1 game under him. Just 1. What must Aubameyang be feeling? He signed to play for a manager that he loved playing under Dortmund, come back to the Premier League, and he must want to prove a lot of people wrong after how it ended at Arsenal. But whoever comes in now might not see him in their plans, and it could go wrong again. So honestly, I don't get any of it. But anyway, we'll move into, now that it's done, settled, whatever, we'll move into what I think they should do next. And of course, they've got 3 or 4 names in the list. The 3 known ones are obviously Graham Potter of Brighton, and you've got Pochettino and Zidane that are free in the market. I'll touch on Graham Potter first. I think Graham Potter is one hell of a manager. The next step for him after Brighton is one of the big 6 before I hope that he takes the England job. But I think he's one hell of a manager. Brighton are playing some really good stuff, but Brighton have given, I think, just come out literally just before I started recording this, that Brighton have given permission to Chelsea to speak to Potter about taking over. But I really don't get it when they've started the season so well. Give credit to them, they've started it so well, but for them to just being allowed to let their manager go. I get Potter might want to go, but I don't see why Brighton should let it after the start of the season they've had. They're playing some really good football. And who are Brighton going to get in to replace Potter? So I don't see why they would or should do that, but it looks like that could actually happen. So if that does happen, it's very good for Chelsea, don't get me wrong. Like I said, Graham Potter is one hell of a manager. He will turn Chelsea around and get them playing good football like what the fans expect and want. So I think ultimately it would be a very good move. It would be a good move for Potter and it would be a good move for Chelsea. It's just, I don't know where Brighton go afterwards. But, and we'll move on to the 2-3 in the market. I'll touch on Zidane first because the less I talk about Pochettino, the better, to be honest. But Zidane, no one really knows what's going on with him. No one's seen him manage a club since he was at Madrid. And I think there's always been this thing with him that he's this serial winner, whatever, wherever he's gone, he's won. But he's had one particular managerial job at Madrid, won 3 Champions Leagues, of course. But that squad was very, very good, suited to him, and he could obviously get the best out of it, which fair play to him. But the more I think about Zidane at Chelsea, the more I just don't think it fits. I think Zidane, I think he is ultimately waiting for the French national team job also as well. I think that's the job he ultimately wants once Deschamps leaves. So I don't see Zidane to Chelsea to happening. So I think it is between Potter and who I'll go into now, Mauricio Pochettino. This makes me feel sick as a Tottenham fan, to be honest. I don't know how to feel. Obviously, people from the outside looking in, they're going to say, it's not like he won anything at your club. He's not really anything special. And you did sack him. I completely get the sacking part. We did sack him. But Tottenham fans still love him to bits. He is still our best manager in recent history. Hands down, 100%. One of our best managers of our history. Whether Conte can, obviously, what he does in the future, who knows. But as it stands, Poch is our best manager in recent history. What he done with our fan base and the club to turn it around from a very poor spell that we were in, it is simply just incredible and unbelievable what he done for us. And it makes me feel sick that the United one I can understand because we're not direct rivals with Man United, so I wouldn't have really been bothered that much if he did go to United because we're not really rivals with them, and I would want to see him back in the Premier League one day, preferably for Tottenham in the future. But Chelsea makes me feel very, very sick. I don't, and it might be from a biased point of view, but I just don't see how that fits because I think there will be a disconnect with the fans instantly because of his links to us. I just don't see where it naturally fits in, and all it takes is one thing to go wrong, the fans are on his back instantly. They're like, this ex-Tottenham manager thinks he can come in and manage us, whatever. Because we all know Chelsea fans do have big egos. So, obviously, I don't see where it ultimately fits. Pochettino would be, skill set wise, he'd be unreal at Chelsea right now with the way that they want to go with their project with the young players. It's what we did when we brought Pochettino in and it worked very well. He can manage egos. A lot of people point to the Messi had at PSG. I don't think that was anything down to Poch not being able to manage big egos. It was just simply him being given a very the most unbalanced team in Europe. So I don't know what much else he could have done. And they did nearly beat Madrid, let's be real. They did nearly beat the eventual winners. And he did manage to get a tune out of Mbappe and Messi and Neymar, like towards the end of the season especially. So I don't think it's a case of him not being able to manage big egos and give him the material and the resources that he is best at and best at getting the best out of. Pochettino will be unreal at Chelsea, and that's what makes me feel even worse about it, knowing what he could do at Chelsea and just thinking of him doing that for them lot really does make me feel sick. So, and I think amongst Tottenham fans, it would feel a sense of betrayal if he was to go to Chelsea, because obviously the hatred between the two clubs is massive. He was manager for us, involved in that Battle of the Bridge game when arguably the most intense, feisty game between the two teams. And I'm sure like Pochettino does know of the rivalry there. And he's always said since he has left us, because he still wears some Tottenham stuff. You see pictures of him all the time in it. And he's always said he'd love to come back one day. I just think if he goes Chelsea, that never happens. That never happens at all. He loses a lot of love, loses a lot of respect within the Tottenham fan base if he does that. And I think it would leave a very bad taste in Tottenham fans' mouth seeing it. It might be because of a biased point of view of we know how good he can be. And if he wants to take it, good luck to him. I wish him all the best, but it makes me feel a bit sick, not going to lie. So overall, I would say Graham Potter would be the most suited, fit in terms of what Chelsea want to do. And the fans would probably want it more. And I think it's probably more likely to happen also. So, yeah, ultimately Graham Potter, if it happens, it's a great appointment. I think it can turn Chelsea's season around, definitely. I mean, I'm saying that. I've just been ranting on about how it's 6 games in. 6 games in! And I'm about turning the season around. We've hardly got started. It's honestly mental that this is even a video I'm having to make. It's mental this is even a conversation. But anyway, it is. Because that, I guess, is the culture of Chelsea. So anyway, there you have it, guys. I hope you did enjoy this video. It's very off the cuff, very uncut, as you'll see, really. Because obviously the news broke this morning. So I hope you did enjoy this kind of video. Let me know if you want more of them down below, more reactionary videos. If you did enjoy, please make sure to leave the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, goodbye.